Joining us now for World Brief and the review of some of the headlines of today's newspapers from around the world is Adefemi Akinsanya. Good morning, Adefemi.
Good morning, Dr. Rubin. I'm fine, thank you. Good morning, Vimbai.
Good morning,
and good morning, Rufai.
Femi.
Rufai, you know that we've met every day this week. Every single day this week.
Can you guys tell us the secrets?
We have. We're on the same page.
Oh yeah.
We'll
Add us to the WhatsApp group now so we can
couple
also
with who are the two Ijebus on this table?
Come on!
Who are the two Ijebus on this table?
Very good.
Ijebu.
Provincial people.
Ijebu.
Provincialism on this table.
When you used to play your provincialism with Tundu, you forgot
Oh,
then.
that's true. When you were outnumbered with the Egbas on the table.
When there were bars on the table.
Oh.
One Nigeria. One
Nigeria as always. Let me tell you what's happening around the world. Now, today is D-Day. US President Donald Trump and his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin will join forces in Anchorage, Alaska for their first meeting in 6 years. Trump, who's trying to turn his campaign pledge of ending Russia's war in Ukraine into reality, says there's a 25% chance the meeting would not be successful. Putin, however, he held a meeting with top officials in preparation for this meeting, and he praised the US administration for making sincere efforts to resolve the Ukraine conflict. Now, the Kremlin says there will be no agreements signed at the meeting, while Putin reportedly suggested that Moscow and Washington could reach a deal on nuclear arms control that could strengthen peace. Meanwhile, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky was in London meeting with Sir Keir Starmer, who said that the Trump-Putin summit in Alaska presents a viable chance to make progress as long as Putin takes action to prove he is serious about peace. Now, the general consensus is that Ukraine should have a say in ending the invasion of its own country. Now, there will be a joint press conference after the meeting between Trump and Putin. Arise News, as always, will continue to keep you up to date. Now, more than 360 people have fallen ill in the Indonesian town of Sragen in central Java. That's after eating school lunches in the largest food poisoning case to hit President Prabowo Subianto's flagship free school meals program. Now, since the launch of the program in January, the free school meals program has been marred by mass food poisoning cases affecting more than 1,000 people. Now, the local government says a food sample has been sent to a lab for testing. The government said it would pay for any medical treatment if needed. Now, this multi-billion-dollar policy was the centerpiece of Prabowo's election campaign, and the former general said the program would improve participants' quality of life and boost economic growth. Now, the free school meals program has been rapidly expanded to over 15 million recipients so far. Authorities plan to reach 83 million people by the end of the year, budgeting a total cost of $10.62 billion this year. And finally, the African Union has backed a campaign to end the use by governments and international organizations of the 16th century Mercator map of the world in favor of the one that more accurately displays Africa's size. Now, the map distorts continent sizes, enlarging areas near the poles like North America and Greenland, while shrinking Africa and South America. Now, Haddadi at the AU, at the African Union, endorsed this campaign, adding that it aligned with its goals of reclaiming Africa's rightful place on the global stage amid growing calls for reparations for colonialism and slavery. Now, the African Union will advocate for a wider map adoption and discuss collective actions with member states. That's also what the AU spokesperson has said. Now, the Mercator map projection is still widely used, including by schools and tech companies, though Google Maps did switch from Mercator on desktop to a 3D globe view in 2018, but users can still switch back to that Mercator, which is, if they prefer, which is clearly, in this instance, not an accurate depiction of different regions in the world, including Africa, because it is far larger in reality than the map shows. Those are your stories on the World Brief. I'll hear your thoughts.
I mean, I totally support that push. Agagado Mercatus did this map many years ago in the 1500s. His son continued that legacy, and then it's been used by explorers around the world. When our colonial fathers gave, this was what they used to share Africa. I mean, and it doesn't do justice to the African continent. So I'm happy that people are pushing back on this, for something that's truly reflective, and the AU should lead it on. But apart from the AU leading on the correction of this, representation of Africa, is the AU to also answer the question why a continent with over 30 million square kilometers of land and close to over 1 billion people have a GDP of less than 3 trillion. which is like the market cap of one or two American or one American company. Why? So it is productivity that we need on the African continent across board. And for the meeting, you see, I am not expecting anything out of this meeting, Femi. When you go back historically, everything Putin is doing today, he has told you he was going to do. He wrote an article in 2021, the 5,000-word Putin article. Please, everybody go and read that article, where he said that Ukraine is, the Russian word that Ukraine comes from is Ukrainian, which means periphery. He talked about the fact that Ukraine was just a creation. It was Lenin that created Ukraine. He didn't talk about the oppression over the years. He talked about the Kievan, identity of one Russia, one Ukraine. He didn't talk about Ukraine as a sovereign nation. He said Ukraine does not need Donbass. 2021, he had not invaded then. This was the pretext to his invasion. And when you read about Putin, there's a very popular book called The Man Without a Face by Marsha Gresson. I think that's one of the most definitive books on Putin that really, truly explains him for who he is. He's always been this way. Small-minded, autocratic, it's always about him, provincial outlook. That's just it. He wants a big Russia, and he sees expansion as one way. The West had made a mistake by not challenging him when he started taking Crimea, South Ossetia, Abkhazia, and the likes. So all he will do is he will regurgitate the lines from his 2021 article.
In real life.
And tell you, and push you around, and make, Trump feel like they've done a deal, and he will go back at the back and renege against it. So I think the world should brace up for a long, drawn-out conflict. Maybe the reprieve will come if Putin is phased out one way or the other. I don't know. I don't see the possibility of that.
I think a welcome development was yesterday during President Donald Trump's address, is that he did say that he felt that this meeting with Vladimir Putin was a lesser meeting to what would follow up,
Correct.
which is one that would include Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, which I think was a very important point. We'd addressed it, and I suppose he was also responding to the global outcry that this meeting cannot take place, this negotiation cannot take place without Ukraine at the table. So I'm glad for that development. Now, one thing that we're not really talking about that I think is a massive benefit of this engagement that's about to happen, and great potential benefit, is nuclear arms control. So Russia and the United States, of course, control about 90% of the world's nuclear warheads. And they have a treaty called the New START Treaty, which governs the control, the restraint of nuclear warheads. That's set to expire in February of next year. So analysts are saying that this is a perfect opportunity to begin to discuss the framework beyond February. Right. Because if we get to February and the New START Treaty expires, given all the tensions we are seeing geopolitically at the moment and the concerns we've already seen, the offensive against Iran and the general concerns about this nuclear arms race seeming to be picking up a little bit of momentum, which is very scary. So if these two nations can come together, even if they disagree on Ukraine, which I think all people agree that that's going to be a much longer process, but at least if they're able to use this meeting to begin to work on a framework that ensures that as of February 2026, the world is not going to be plunged into some sort of chaotic anarchy where the United States and Russia are just doing whatever they want with their nuclear warheads. Volatile, scary, concerning because of the two personalities you have at the helm of affairs in both countries. We don't want that. So I hope that if nothing else, we can begin a framework for this nuclear control, nuclear arms control between the two countries. After this, correct the map campaign. I love it. This is really like you called my phone number with this topic. It's the stuff I'm very passionate about. I was listening to a professor from my alma mater. It's Professor Lopez, who speaks at the Nelson Mandela School of Governance at the University of Cape Town, and he was talking about how this has impacted our geopolitical disadvantage over the years. Not only is it a psychological thing, but it's also something that hinders our ability to structure correct and accurate development plans. Correct. Because in the minds of people, Africa is smaller than it needs, whereas our developmental needs are actually far larger than the way the continent is portrayed.
Agree.
Okay, Trump Putin. Let me start with this setting. The meeting is going to take place at the Anchorage in Alaska, which was bought from the Russians in 1867 by United States after the Crimean War. If you go to the end of the Bering Strait in Alaska, there is, a distance of between about 90,000, about 55 miles, between Russia and the U.S. at the end of it. So the Americans have a military base there. And symbolically, one of the major issues on the table is Ukraine. And one of the major issues at the heart of that conversation is about land cession. Russia has made it very clear that its attempt to take over additional 90,000 kilometers of Ukraine,
yes,
Crimea, Donetsk, Zaporizhzhia, and Povoroso, and the whole of eastern Donbass,
yes,
that it is non-negotiable. So these are the issues on the table. Now, Ukraine, before now, had said it wanted to join NATO. Russia says, no, it cannot join NATO. That issue will also be on the table. The other issue that will be on the table are the guarantees, the security guarantees that Ukraine is asking for, which Russia is not willing to grant, and which Zelensky says, on the basis of that, it is not clear. It is not even possible that Russia wants the war to end. In the lead up to this talk in the Anchorage in Alaska at 1900 GMT today, Russia has been on the offensive, advancing more into the territory of Ukraine, yes, just to force the hands of the parties involved. So that's the setting. The other third point is that this is supposed to be a trilateral meeting, but it's a bilateral meeting between Trump and Putin. Now, Trump has said, well, after this first meeting, Zelensky will be involved because it will be very difficult, as Zelensky himself has pointed out, to agree on the cession of land belonging to the Ukrainian people, as stated that land belongs to Ukrainian people in Article 13 of the Ukrainian Constitution, Article 17 and Article 73, which gives the Parliament of Ukraine the powers to call for a referendum. So the issues may not be resolved. What is certain, what we know, is that Zelensky met with Keir Starmer yesterday, and he has received support from the European bloc,
yes,
saying that we will back you up in terms of the guarantees that you are asking for. But we'll be waiting for the outcome, the readout of that meeting.
Yes.
Although we must recall that Miss Leavitt, has said yesterday that this meeting today is just a listening opportunity.
Correct.
And that's the United States trying to downplay things. Now, about cartographic bias, that's the cartographic politics. Now, it was in 1569 that the Mercator projection was, put up for maritime navigation. At the time the Mercator projection was put in place, that projection only talked about space. It didn't talk about scale. And now in that description, that Mercator cartographic projection, it overplayed Europe.
Yes. Showing
Europe visually dominant, dominating everywhere, and then United States, looking better. And Africa was just put there marginally, visually marginalized.
Yes.
And this must be seen, this cartographic, geography as politics, must be in the context of everything. Because what people see also determines how you are considered in business, in diplomacy, in international relations.
Correct, yes.
So Africa was deliberately made to look small, visually. And yet, there has been a review by Gail Peters and Equal Act. They've done their own cartography, showing that, in fact, the whole of the United States, China, Japan, half of Europe is, in fact, smaller than Africa. Yes. Alaska, in the Mercator projection, showed Africa being smaller than Alaska, when in reality, I said Alaska because I talked about the North Pole,
Greenland.
the poles,
Greenland.
Yes. Greenland is 14 times smaller than Africa.
Yes.
So this is a problem that you have. This attempt to downplay Africa. And it has implications for business because Africa is the last frontier. It's a big continent.
It is
so
massive.
The attempt by the African Union to say that there should be a review is also the same way in which Africans decided that we have history, we have culture,
Absolutely.
we are bigger than we are, and we have markets because there's an economic dimension to it.
Correct.
And this is the last frontier where global market can happen.
You're
So
right.
I support the move, to correct the colonial cartographic bias dating back to 1569.
Yes, we are all on the same page there. Thank you, Dr. Reuben. Thank you, Vimbai. Thank you, Rufai. Let's move on to papers. Let's take a look at the front page of This Day this morning. This Day leads with Enugu State Governor Peter Mbah yesterday inaugurating 5 ultra-modern transport terminals in various parts of the state in line with his integrated blueprint for a modern and multimodal transport system. Mbah also launched 100 out of the 200 CNG, that's compressed natural gas, mass transit buses acquired by the administration, the Enugu State modern transport system, as well as over 80 modern bus shelters constructed across the state. This Day also reports on the Director General of the World Trade Organization, Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, lauding President Tinubu for stabilizing the economy during her visit to the President in Abuja. But if we take a look at the front page of the New Telegraph, Dr. Okonjo-Iweala also calls for social safety nets to be implemented in order to address economic hardship here in Nigeria. There's also news that 146 Nigerian women won the Women's Exporter Fund support. Both the Punch and the Daily Trust lead with pension funds. Now, the Punch says that the strike countdown begins as PENCOM and Labour are at loggerheads, while the Daily Trust says that many northern states are paying their retirees far below the 32,000 naira minimum. Some in the region are reportedly paying as little as 2,000 naira. Now, Taraba, Borno, Bauchi, Yobe, Adamawa, Benue, and Niger states were among those named in the article. The leadership looks at the by-elections taking place this weekend as Nigerians are due to vote across 7,324 polling units. And still with politics, the Daily Sun reports on the PDP's 44-man panel on zoning. Finally, the Vanguard leads with a special report on how modern life is making men infertile.
Right.
Those are your papers.
Yeah, sounds like a good read.
Yeah.
I always love.
Apparently,
those, like,
62%
lifestyle.
of men are suffering from low sperm count,
Oh, that's a tough
making
one.
them very infertile.
Definitely going to read that.
Because, sometimes they make it seem as if it's a women's issue. When women don't have children, maybe.
Very
That's one too.
controversial
Those
space
who
you're
have
going
low sperm
into.
count, if they go to the doctors early enough, it can be corrected.
Yeah.
It's not a death sentence.
It's not.
And so
It's
it's
not,
not
but
about
it's-
male, female.
But in this instance, it is male that are suffering from,
that's
infertility
why we
issues.
have
It's not just a
hospitals.
women's issue, is the point.
That's why the culture will say, oh, it's always the woman.
Exactly,
If that
which
is
is
where you
wrong.
are coming from.
Correct.
But couples should seek medical advice.
Absolutely. So
Agreed.
many solutions, innovations
As
out there
always.
now. Adefemi Akinsanyo, wish you
Always
a
a pleasure.
fantastic weekend.
Thank you, you too.